आज मैं आप लोगों को लेके जाऊंगा ऑस्ट्रेलिया के गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में और उन लोगों से पूछेंगे कि वो किस तरीके से बच्चों को पढ़ाते हैं। मेरी डिस्कशन होगी वहाँ के प्रिंसिपल, वाइस प्रिंसिपल और डिप्टी प्रिंसिपल के साथ और हम देखेंगे कि प्राइमरी और अर्ली एजुकेशन के अंदर क्या तरीक़ेकार हैं जिसको ऑस्ट्रेलिया फॉलो करता है और क्या ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिसको पाकिस्तान फॉलो कर सकता है और हमें क्या कुछ करना चाहिए। इन सब चीज़ों को डिस्कस करने के लिए सबसे पहले चलते हैं इस इंटरव्यू में और मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ कि क्या बात है।
Well, my name's Michael Kelly. I'm principal here at Mount Public School. I've been here since 2003 and I actually started my teaching career in 1979, believe it or not, although you could probably tell because of the colour of my hair. My mother was a school cleaner, my father was a truck driver. I also worked in district office as a student welfare consultant.
Hi, my name's Diane Youthmeyer. I'm Deputy Principal at Mount Public School. I started my career at the University of Western Sydney when I started my Bachelor of Education. I have over 20 years experience at various schools within the Mount Jordan-Penrith area.
My name is Pauline DeVille. I'm an assistant principal here at Mount Public School and I've been here for around 4 years now. I have worked in education for about 20 years across early childhood as well as primary school education. I've also spent time overseas working in schools in India, including schools that are significantly disadvantaged in slum areas. So I have an awareness of how schools differ between Australia and some overseas countries. I have done some volunteering work in Cambodia and Vietnam as well. I feel that children here are incredibly lucky. We have an excellent school system here and our children are incredibly lucky to be able to go to school here in Australia.
Okay, so my name is Bridget Harsh. I have been teaching for 13 years in the primary school system, so I graduated in 2007. I did work in a different region to Sydney before that, so I've been teaching in a casual capacity. I've had temporary blocks as a teacher. I did move to this school in 2011 as a permanent teacher. So I have taught kindy right through to year 6, so every grade throughout my time here at Mount Druitt Public School. Part of my journey has been part of the Early Action for Success initiative, which is where I became an interventionist. So in that role, I would work in rooms with target students, so students who were performing below stage expected level. And just trying to bridge the gap, particularly in the area of mathematics. After that, I was made the instructional leader at the school here, so for literacy, which I was in that role for 3 years.
First of all, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to discuss with you a few of the things regarding curriculum, regarding how Australia is working on the education sector and how NSW and Sydney specifically running the schools. So if you guys can tell me, what is the main focus for kids who are starting the school in terms of early education and primary education, and what are the outcomes for that?
What we try and do is to make sure that we teach those kids the consistency and the very drumbeat approach of learning. They know they're safe, they know that they're valued, and also we check up on their social skills, make sure that they can sit in a group, they can take their turn, they can wait, and we also make sure that if there is a learning disability there, we pick it up early and we address it as soon as possible. And our system's very good at that.
I would say confidence is the most important thing when it comes to education. I mean, when children feel comfortable and when they feel safe in a school and in a classroom environment, they're capable of learning. When they don't feel safe and when they're not comfortable in a school, their learning is stunted and they struggle to learn.
So when kids do start school, we do a lot of transition. So we run quite a few transition programs so students aren't anxious when they do start school. And a lot of that does involve building the rapport with the teacher in that classroom to ensure that they're not anxious when they do start in that new classroom or at that new school when they are actually starting their schooling journey. We do use the PBL program, so positive behaviour for learning. So that is pretty much the fundamental of all of our wellbeing here at the school. And a lot of that does involve building confidence in students. And that does, as Pauline mentioned, translate into the work that they're doing and into other areas of the curriculum.
So I guess the basics are really important. So looking at intervention programs that really focus on those basic skills of expressive receptive language, number skills, phonemic awareness and phonological knowledge. Because without that basis, we know that they're not going to be good readers. So we need to have that really good groundwork there before we can expect them to take leaps and bounds.
And what we're trying to do, Cameron, is make sure we develop good citizens for our country. It's not a business that we're in. We're educators, and the thing that we're trying to get across is that we're supporting families in the education of their kids, and families are very important in that process.
Well, I guess our primary focus is to look at a child from a holistic view. So again, if they're comfortable in their learning environment and they feel safe, they're going to learn. So that would be our first focus, is like Bridget said, through orientations and transitions into school, making them feel comfortable at the school. Then we would move on to academics. I guess in the early years, we're focusing in on literacy and numeracy, but we're doing that across a number of other key learning areas.
Yep, so I definitely agree. It's the well-being and it's that holistic approach to their learning. So learning is very much part of well-being now. It's not an isolated thing. So our main role is to educate and to progress students along and engage them with the curriculum. So if they are not feeling engaged with the curriculum, or there are areas that, might be perceived as their downfall, then that would be our job to kind of look at where they are and move them along in their learning. So I guess the ultimate role is to know where students are and how to get them to the next step in their learning. And as Pauline mentioned, that has a lot to do with a lot of their different needs. So their learning needs, their spiritual needs. So the teachers are responsible for the whole child and the community in which we operate as well. So it's a quite in-depth role, I would say, and it has become a lot more complicated, that's the word.
Yeah, we're in an interesting time because a lot of people see the technology, but they don't understand the learning that's involved. So it's most important that when kids are on that laptop or on that iPhone or in front of that computer, that we understand what learning is taking place and what actually the kids are thinking about and what the outcome's going to be and what skills are they learning.
So future focused learning has also been a big push of ours, which includes not just having, flexible seating areas and having technology in the room. It's about making sure that it's utilised in the right way to help get those outcomes that we need for our kids. I like the way NAPLAN shows growth for students. For us, it's all about seeing that growth in our students, and that's what our internal data is good at. It's about showing growth. So if we can see that growth, whether it's on our progressions or looking at our syllabus outcomes and indicators, we're constantly tracking our data. Every 5 weeks, teachers are asked to input data on their reading, their mathematics. Of course, we don't do all our outcomes and indicators. We just look at a select few that we feel are important, or we target a group area based on the cohort and what that need is, and then we can target students based around those learning outcomes, making sure that they're progressing in that area.
And it allows us to look at the weaknesses of the kids and what areas we should be looking at. But there's a lot of emphasis from families, and they place a lot of judgment on schools on NAPLAN results, and sometimes that's not fair. That's not fair in the school, it's not fair on the kids, and it's not fair on the teachers.
And so before you start a subject, you find out where your students are. So that is the first part of the role, to figure out what they do know and what they don't know. And we use the pre-assessment to plan future teaching focuses. Once we've done that, we also have formative assessment, which is ongoing. So throughout the activities that the students do, it's not necessarily a sit-down test. So it's during the independent activities, you're monitoring and assessing whether they understand the content that you have explicitly taught. Then we have diagnostic assessments at the end, where it shows whether the students have grasped the concepts that you are teaching then and there. So sometimes we don't need the diagnostic assessments. Often that daily ongoing assessment and that monitoring of students and working with children in a guided capacity, you have that understanding as to how they are going.
Important for children to take responsibility for their own learning and to be engaged and motivated within themselves. They need to know what their goals are. So our teachers here at Mount Druitt are very focused on making sure that with every single lesson, that the children have a goal and they know the success criteria, they know what they need to do, and they know how to achieve that.
Every day, well, we call that reflection, but our system, the public system, is very good at actually ensuring that teachers are up to standard, and it's a pretty high standard, I think, with their degrees and their certification, and they're working with children checks and things like that. Our department does that very, very well, I must admit, and thank God they do.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, and we know this has a massive impact, it has a great effect size with students, is that student-teacher relationship. So when I'm looking at employing someone, I'm looking at whether or not they have really good interpersonal skills. Can they build that relationship even with the tricky students? Are they good at behaviour management? Unless they have a lot of those basic things down, it's difficult to teach content. So that's really important. It's also important for staff wellbeing that they have really good communication and interpersonal skills with staff. In saying that, we also have a really good structure in terms of our leadership model. We have a deputy principal, myself, who monitors and mentors the assistant principals. The assistant principals then in turn have their own stage, and they mentor, observe and provide feedback to their teachers. And that's observing their lessons, giving feedback. We also have beginning teacher sessions and a mentor, and they have a lot of extra time off class to discuss with each other, reflect on lessons, discuss with their mentor, observe each other and provide feedback and critical feedback to each other, go and watch other people teach so that they can get ideas for their own classroom. And a lot of the feedback and critical reflection is based around the teachers' teaching standards.
So we do have 7 key learning areas. So we're given syllabuses for those key learning areas. So we do have English, I'm going to use my fingers here to count. So we have English, maths, science, geography, history, PDH, PE, and CAPA, so creative and performing arts. So they're all the different areas. However, the way that I look at it is that English and maths are the skills in which to make meaning of the other key learning areas. So English being the skills, and so the grammar and the writing and the reading. So all of those fundamental skills to be literate is taught in English, so then they can make meaning of the science and make meaning of the history and make meaning of the geography. And definitely mathematics is, we like to think of it as exercising the brain. So there's skills that exercise the brain to really enable kids to be analytical and critical thinkers. So it does translate into different parts of their life and their decision making later. So we'll often hear kids say, when am I going to use this in maths? You know, if it's algebra or something, like, when will I use this in my real life? We often say to kids, it's actually the process that your brain is going through when you are doing that mathematics that does then impact how successful you are in those other key learning areas as well. So that's why I guess English mostly to make meaning of the different key learning areas and the world around you in which you operate, and English being the language that we learn here. That we speak in Australia, so being English is the main language, and maths is the skills that you need to get by in real life.
I would agree with what Bridget has said. I mean, we like to teach children to learn, We have to teach them to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers, to be able to operate in a global world. At the end of the day, we don't know what jobs they're going to be doing in 20 years' time. So we need to be able to prepare them for a world that could throw anything at them, jobs that may not even exist at this time. So we're teaching them to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers, to be able to communicate and work as part of a team and part of a group. They're the important skills that we teach them. The key learning areas and the subjects, that's just the content that we teach them, those skills. So we teach them problem solving through mathematics, and we teach them how to communicate and how to work together. And we use mathematics to do that and teach them to be numerate, teach them to be literate, so that they can operate and be successful in a global community.
We're very much aware of this because we have many Pakistani families here in our school, and I had many Pakistani mums and dads. Invariably, it was the mums coming up and asking for more and more homework. My daughter needs more and more homework. And I actually said to them, look, they're working really hard. So we've left it up to each and every teacher. If they want to provide homework, that's up to them. That's a professional choice. But in saying that, there's a lot of research that shows that the homework, in fact, alienates the children with their family, because the family's onto them and saying you've got to do this, when the kid's already put in a day's work, and then the family's actually asked them to work harder at home if they want to get ahead, and that's kind of pushing the child away from learning. And on early career teachers, I find that the standard that we're dealing with is very high. They're very, very good. A lot better than when I started, for example. But they are very sharp, very intelligent, and very good with not only kids but also with families. And I think that's a key thing, as Di said. Without that relationship between teachers and kids and teachers and families, you really haven't got a foundation to stand on. And we try and avoid the depository sort of teaching where the teacher's the fountain of all information and the teacher's going to provide it to you and you've got to listen, because if you don't listen to this, you're missing out. That just doesn't work with us. And to tell you the truth, if someone tried that with me, I wouldn't listen to them either.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I think let's conclude this. Thank you so much for giving me the time. I think many people in many different countries, especially Pakistan and nearby areas, can learn from this experience. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then can I say to our colleagues in Pakistan, we wish you all the best, and we're with you, and good luck with your journey of learning.
Yeah, thank you so much. तो अभी आपने गुफ्तगू मुलाज़ा फरमाई ऑस्ट्रेलियन पब्लिक स्कूल के एक प्रिंसिपल और उनके स्टाफ की। मेरी कोशिश थी कि मैं उनसे वो तमाम सवालात पूछ सकूं या ज़्यादातर सवालात पूछ सकूं यहाँ पे ऑस्ट्रेलिया में किस तरीके से एक बच्चे को पढ़ाया जाता है जब वो स्कूल में दाखिल होता है, किन किन चीज़ों का ख्याल रखा जाता है स्कूल की तरफ से, पेरेंट्स की तरफ से, टीचर्स की तरफ से। एक माइंड सेट क्या है किसी बच्चे को स्कूल में पढ़ाने का, उसको आगे लेके जाने का, ताकि वो एक अच्छा शहरी भी बन सके और मुल्क भी तरक्की कर सके। ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर स्कूल्स को मॉनिटर करने का, स्कूल्स को असेस करने का एक प्रॉपर सिस्टम है और उसको नैपलन कहते हैं, जिसके अंदर हर स्कूल की एक स्पेसिफिक रेटिंग होती है, चाहे वो पब्लिक स्कूल हो या वो प्राइवेट स्कूल हो। हर स्कूल को एक ख़ास असेसमेंट में से गुजरना पड़ता है, एक ख़ास इम्तिहान में से गुजरना पड़ता है, जिसके बाद उस स्कूल की एक रेटिंग मुरतब होती है। आप जिन स्कूलों की रेटिंग अच्छी होती है, उस पूरे इलाके के अंदर उस जगह की ज़मीन के पैसे भी ज़्यादा होते हैं, वहाँ के मकानों के किराए भी ज़्यादा होते हैं। तो ओवरऑल स्कूल की जो रेटिंग है वो डिटरमिन करती है कि वो इलाका किस तरीके का है। पाकिस्तान के अंदर भी एक असेसमेंट सिस्टम होना चाहिए तमाम स्कूलों का, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल हो या वो प्राइवेट स्कूल हो। उन नंबर्स की बेसिस पे, उस सिस्टम की बेसिस पे और उस रेटिंग की बेसिस पे उस स्कूल को फंडिंग मिलनी चाहिए। उस रेटिंग की बेसिस के ऊपर आपको ये पता लगना चाहिए कि मैं अपने बच्चे को इस प्राइवेट स्कूल में भेजूं जिसके अंदर कोई XYZ फीस है, या मैं इसको एक पब्लिक स्कूल में भेज दूं जिसकी रेटिंग इस प्राइवेट स्कूल से भी अच्छी है। दूसरी चीज़ जो डिस्कस हो रही थी वो टीचर और स्टूडेंट का आपस में प्यार का एक रिश्ता, एहतराम का एक वो रिश्ता जो कि बहुत ही ज़रूरी है। वो रिलेशनशिप قائم کروایا جاتا ہے پرنسپل کی جانب سے, پرنسپل کی پوری ٹیم کی جانب سے, اسکول کے اسٹاف کی جانب سے, کہ ٹیچر اور اسٹوڈنٹ میں کسی قسم کا کوئی گیپ نہ ہو. بچہ اسکول جانے سے ڈرے نہیں, بلکہ جس دن آپ اس کو چھٹی کرائیں وہ آپ سے لڑ رہا ہو کہ میں نے اسکول جانا. آپ نے ایک اور چیز بھی نوٹ کی ہوگی, یہاں پہ ایک پبلک اسکول اس طریقے سے رن ہوتا ہے جیسے ایک بہت اچھا پرائیویٹ ادارہ رن ہو رہا ہوتا ہے. آپ پبلک اسکول کے اندر تمام طرح کے لوگ ہوتے ہیں, جس میں کہ ایچ آر کے لوگ, جس میں وہ لوگ بھی شامل ہوتے ہیں جو ٹیچر کو مانیٹر کرتے ہیں, جو ٹیچر کو اپ گریڈ کرتے ہیں, اس کی سکلز کا خیال رکھتے ہیں, جو یہ میک شور کرتے ہیں کہ جو بچے ہیں وہ کیا سیکھ رہے ہیں, اور ان کے ڈیٹا کو مرتب کیا جاتا ہے کہ ہمارے بچے کس چیز میں پیچھے ہیں, ہمارے بچے کس طریقے سے آگے جا سکتے ہیں. ایک ایک چیز کا خیال رکھا جاتا ہے. یہاں پہ اسکولوں کو بزنس کی طرح نہیں چلایا جاتا. یہاں پہ جو اسکول ہیں ان کو ایک احترام کی نگاہ سے دیکھا جاتا ہے. ان کو اس طریقے سے چلایا جاتا ہے کہ اس اسکول نے اگلی نسل کو آگے لے کے جانا ہے, اور ایسے شہری پیدا کرنے ہیں جو کہ ملک کے لیے آگے جا کر کام کر سکیں. 2 سبجیکٹس کے اوپر بہت زیادہ فوکس ہوتا ہے. ایک ہے لٹریسی, انگلش لینگویج, اور ایک ہے نیومریسی, میتھمیٹکس. ان 2 سبجیکٹس کے اوپر 70% فوکس ہوتا ہے, کیونکہ جب بچہ ان 2 سبجیکٹس کے اندر مہارت حاصل کر لے گا تو باقی چیزیں بھی کر لے گا. ٹیچر بچے کو آبجیکٹو بیسڈ لرننگ کرواتا ہے, اس کو وہ سکلز اور وہ چیزیں سکھاتا ہے کہ بچہ اپنے طور پر بھی خود چیزیں سیکھ سکے. وہ واحد ہستی نہیں ہوتا کہ جس کے علاوہ بچہ کسی سے کچھ اور سیکھ نہ سکے, یا ایک ہی بک نہیں ہوتی کریکولم کے اندر جس کے اندر سب کچھ لکھا ہے اور اس کے علاوہ کچھ بھی نہیں ہے. تو بچے کو پڑھائی کا موقع دیا جاتا ہے, بچے کو خود سے سوچنے کا موقع دیا جاتا ہے تاکہ اس کا دماغ ڈیولپ ہو, تاکہ بچہ اپنے طور پر ایک چیز کو اسیس کر سکے, اپنی طور پہ انفارمیشن کو ریسرچ کر سکے, وہ دیکھ سکے کہ کس طریقے کی چیزیں دنیا کے اندر چل رہی ہیں. ایک بہت امپورٹنٹ چیز جو یہاں فالو ہوتی ہے وہ ہے سلیکٹیو سکولز. سلیکٹیو سکولز وہ سکولز ہوتے ہیں جہاں پہ گورنمنٹ بہت زیادہ فنڈنگ کرتی ہے اور اس کو ایک رول ماڈل بنا دیا جاتا ہے باقی سکولز کے لیے. پاکستان میں کیا سلیکٹیو سکولز شروع نہیں ہو سکتے؟ بڑے شہروں کے اندر کچھ ایسے سکولز کو گورنمنٹ فنڈ کرے جو کہ گورنمنٹ کے سکول ہوں, لیکن وہاں کا سٹاف, وہاں کی ٹیکنالوجی, وہاں کی فنڈنگ, وہاں کے سپورٹس اور سارا کچھ ایز اے ہول اس طریقے سے چلایا جائے کہ وہ رول ماڈلز ہوں پرائیویٹ سکولز کے لیے بھی اور گورنمنٹ کے سکول کے لیے. ان سکولوں کے اندر داخلہ ہو میرٹ کی بیسس کے اوپر, اور جو بچے 5th کلاس کے بعد بہت اچھا پرفارم کریں گورنمنٹ لیول کے اوپر, وہ ہی ان سکولز کے اندر جا سکیں. آئی ایم شیور اس قسم کے سکولز شروع کرنے کے بعد گورنمنٹ کو بہت سے اچھے اسٹوڈنٹس ملیں گے جو کہ ملک کا نام روشن کر سکتے ہیں. پاکستان میں پرائیویٹ اور پبلک سکولز کے اندر ایک ہی طرح کا کیریکلم ہونا چاہیے, اور گورنمنٹ کو میک شور کرنا چاہیے کہ جو سکولز بھی اس کیریکلم کو فالو کر رہے ہیں وہ اس کو کس طریقے سے فالو کر رہے ہیں. ان کا کوالٹی ایشورنس چیک ضرور ہونا چاہیے. ٹیکنالوجی کس طریقے سے یوز ہوتی ہے, صرف ٹیکنالوجی جسٹ فار دا سیک آف ٹیکنالوجی یوز نہیں ہو رہی ہوتی, بلکہ مختلف قسم کی ایپس ہوتی ہیں جو بچوں کو کنیکٹ رکھتی ہیں, جو کہ ان کے پیرنٹس کو اسکول کے ساتھ کنیکٹ رکھتی ہیں, جو کہ بتاتی ہیں کہ اس ٹائم آپ کے بچے کی کیا پروگرس ہے, وہ کس طریقے سے پرفارم کر رہا ہے, اسکول کے اندر کیا نئی چیزیں ایڈ ہو رہی ہیں. کسی بھی ملک کے اندر سب سے ضروری چیز یہ ہوتی ہے کہ وہاں کی آنے والی نسل کو کس طریقے سے ٹرین کیا جا رہا ہے. آسٹریلیا کے اندر چھوٹے بچوں کو پیرنٹس بھی, اسکولز بھی, گورنمنٹ بھی سب مل کر اس طریقے سے ان کو آگے چلاتے ہیں کہ وہ بڑے ہو کر ایک بہت ہی اچھے شہری بن سکیں, اپنا مثبت کردار ادا کر سکیں ملک کی ترقی کے اندر. ان کو سکھانے کے اندر, ان کی سپورٹس کے اندر, ان کی انٹرٹینمنٹ کے اندر, ہر چیز میں یہ سب لوگ انوالو ہوتے ہیں اور سب لوگ مل کے یہ کام کرتے ہیں. امید کرتا ہوں کہ اس چھوٹی سی ادنا سی کوشش سے شاید کسی کے علم میں اضافہ ہوا ہو, شاید اس چیز کے بارے میں انفارمیشن ملی ہو کہ فرسٹ ورلڈ کنٹری کے اندر اسکولز میں بچوں کو کس طریقے سے پڑھایا جاتا ہے اور کس طریقے سے ان کا خیال رکھا جاتا ہے کہ وہ بڑے ہو کر ایک ذمہ دار شہری بن سکیں. دیکھتے رہیے گا تھائلینڈ پرسپیکٹو. آپ سے ملاقات ہوگی اگلے ایپیسوڈ. تھینک یو.